what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. I'm Doug Cunnington, and today I'm going to talk about what I would do if I was starting over again now in 2026. And maybe we can assume that I don't have any skills, which maybe that's not a huge stretch. But for the sake of this episode, no skills, maybe just some corporate experience, generally IT and tech related experience, roughly, like I did before I got started. But these kind of episodes are always popular because I think people are looking for ideas for themselves, of course. But whenever I've done one in the past, it seems like people do want to hear what's going on. Now, the caveat, which I probably mentioned in the episode like this that I did last year, because it has a great headline, what I would do if I was starting over in 2026. The thing is, I'm not trying to start anything right now, and I'm not looking really closely at different opportunities and stuff like that, and I don't have firsthand experience. However, I do have experience starting other things in the past, and one of the other caveats is like, a lot of stuff that I do see out there, it kind of seems like bullshit. It's a little too good to be true. And often people have a specific financial incentive to convince you that, you can do a certain thing because you'll have to buy a tool or buy their coaching or whatever. But I got a couple ideas, and I've exchanged emails with a few folks in the last couple weeks, hearing about what they're working on and that kind of stuff. So if you're watching on YouTube, you know that the view is a little bit different. If you're just listening, I'll describe it for you. I'm sitting on Georgie's bed. She kind of lays off to the side, but in the studio, I have my standing desk kind of up front, and typically that's where I record this show. Behind that, there's a couple of tables where I record my other show, and it's set up so like 4 people could sit up there. Usually there's only 2, but Georgie's bed is huge and it sits right in front. It's typically out of camera, but she's having a really good nap today. And I was like, it looks cozy down there. I'm wearing PJ pants. It's like 20 degrees outside. It's very cold outside today. I think it's snowing a little bit. So we've had like roller coaster weather here in the Colorado area. Hasn't been as cold as normal. It is probably normal temperatures today, but in the last week, it's been mid 60s. It's been very warm all winter long. We will have a couple days here and there where it gets a little cooler, but overall, pretty warm. Anyway, it's cold outside, and I was like, she looks cozy. She doesn't want to walk right now. Why don't I just sit on her bed and pet her while we record the episode, which is how I should do like all of the episodes. This one I'll probably do much better. Every now and then she wakes up and kind of stretches. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see this. We'll get into it today. Number 1, I would probably give print on demand a shot, specifically digital printables on Etsy, including giftables. So the thing is, I haven't been looking much for side hustles and different things to get started. But I've talked to a couple friends that have been doing this for a few years. And I recently interviewed Cody Berman, and he started earning good money in a fairly short amount of time. And he did it again a couple years later. In the recent interview, it was, I think, 114 days. He had I can't quite remember, maybe $1,000 a month. But the point is, he quickly reached a respectable amount of money for a side hustle. And he did start things from scratch, even though he did have experience. So obviously he knew his way around the tools and the kind of products that seemed to work. But if you go back to that interview, you hear his approach generally. And, here's one of the cases, right? Like, he's talking about how you could do this, but he has a course, and it's like, well, he has a financial incentive to make it sound like a great viable business model. That said, I talk about the print on demand business model and what Cody is doing, and Emily Odio-Sutton as she's doing giftables. So, no clothing typically, but it's like coffee mugs and like mouse pads and whatever, journals, stuff like that. There's many different little products you could do, and she'll focus on a specific demographic like teachers or something like that, and then come up with a bunch of different products, a bunch of different blurbs or text or designs based on the target demographic, and then she'll make hundreds of them. And same thing with Cody, you just kind of make a huge volume of products. They're print on demand, so you don't have to hold inventory, buy a bunch of t-shirts and like keep them at your house and send them off. Like, it's all print on demand. So from a startup cost standpoint, seems awesome. There's a little bit of software you might have to pay for. And when you go over to Etsy, you have to pay, I can't remember, some nominal amount, say $25 to $50 each year to use the platform. But other than that, the startup costs are just your time. And that's one of the key things when I was getting started with niche sites and stuff. It was like, buy some hosting, a little bit of software, and you could kind of get going for a few $100. And back in the olden days, you could start earning money in a few weeks, maybe a little over a month or something like that. Again, in the old days, you could get a little traction. Not enough money to pay for your expenses yet, but you would get a couple pennies here and there, and it kind of proved the business model and gave you confidence to keep going. So that's super important. And I think there's very low downside on the print on demand side of things. You can take a look. If you happen to have like graphic design experience, that could be helpful. But typically people are just using Canva, and Canva is a powerful tool. You could probably use the free version of that for a little while. I have a paid version. I think they've been raising the prices over the years, but overall, it's a great tool. And I'm sure you can find alternatives that are cheaper. I don't know the quality, but typically there's probably many alternatives out there for a popular tool like Canva. If you're watching this, you probably have some SEO or marketing background. And while the industry has shifted dramatically, and really the way people are using the internet is different than it was, people used to read blogs regularly, but they don't read blogs in the same way. There's still blogs out there, but if you were starting something new, I wouldn't recommend you start a blog. So SEO has changed, but many of the same ideas, I believe, still apply completely for AI-related things. Before we got started, I did 1 minute of research, really prepared for this show, did 1 minute of research on the different things that AI or the different things that SEO has shifted to within AI. And the thing is, people use the internet differently, but businesses still need help showing up wherever people are searching for them. So previously, someone maybe Googled something and they went to their search engine of choice, and that was the route. But now they may still be doing that. They may still go to Google and Google shit, and maybe there's an AI summary, a little overview. I searched for something recently, and there's like an AI assistant within the search, and you could ask more questions, which is actually, that's a good tangent I can go on in a second here. But it shifted, and I looked up these different things. So AIO, which apparently is optimization for AI tools. Then there's GEO, and that's ranking within AI search. And then AEO, which maybe that's AI engine optimization. I don't know. They didn't even define it in the Reddit thread that I looked at. So I was like, fuck it. They're just putting letters together. I don't know what it is. Sounds like it's AI related. 1 minute of research, and it was Reddit. So what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Anyway, there are plenty of businesses that still need help in some capacity. And my interpretation of the information I got from conversations with folks that are still running agencies, they're basically like, yeah, it's kind of the same principles. Like there's some different things out there, but overall, you're doing the same kind of stuff. You put out content. It needs to be high quality. Maybe you show up in AI chatbot conversations and stuff, if that's what people are using to figure out what restaurant to go to when they're traveling or something. But overall, it's kind of the same idea. Now, I'm on Shauna Newman's email list, and she talked a lot about Reddit marketing in the last podcast that she was with me on. And basically, she put together, a package. Sounds like the Reddit marketing is really blowing up. I believe one of the reasons is Reddit shows up in Google search a lot because they're in bed together, as we know, which is why, like when I did my little research, I end up on a Reddit thread and I'm like, I'll do what I can here. People will understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, that is a whole set of, it's a whole business, right? Like she can do Reddit marketing and just kind of shift and pivot as the market changes, as the mechanics of how people are using the internet and how SEO techniques are morphing into AI related search. Again, however people are getting the information, however people are searching, it's going to continue to shift. And as AI gets better and then people adapt, or maybe other tools pop up, and instead of going to like ChatGPT directly, they're using some, intermediate tool instead, there's still a need out there, and it's certainly worthwhile if you're like, oh, all right, I have these SEO skills. How can I transfer that over to AI related stuff? I think that's a fine way to go. I will caution you to make sure you kind of have your shit together. And I was thinking about this. I totally forgot, but when I first got into SEO and marketing, I was very excited, as we are. You learn a little bit and you think you know everything. I was at a coffee shop working on my website one morning, and I overheard the guy sitting next to me. There were a couple dudes, and one was explaining SEO and how to rank. And I was sitting there drinking coffee, typing away, and I was like, oh, they're 100% talking about SEO. He was talking about writing content and then explaining how Google worked. And I was like, hey, guys, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it over here. You're talking about SEO and ranking your website. I'm literally like working on this stuff. And I have a couple websites, like I'm ranking number 1 for these couple terms, and I'm selling these products as an affiliate. And it's really cool. I ended up chatting with them for half an hour. The guy ended up hiring me. He was like, I would pay you if you could help me rank my website. It was about, he was a ex-Navy SEAL, and it was about like just PT and training and getting ready to go to like SEAL training, I believe. And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I think this seems pretty straightforward. I'll need to do a little research. And basically, I had experience as a management consultant where you go to a company, you ask them like, how are things running? What do you want to improve? What's the difference between like where you are now and where you want to be? And put together a plan on how we can get there and who's doing what, when, and how much it's going to cost by when. And he was like, sure, we could do that. And the reason why I caution you is because like I thought I knew a lot more than I did. It took much longer for me to do the work than I expected. He did rank well, And the thing is, like, I delivered, I met the, objectives. I'm a good communicator. Again, I was consulting for almost a decade at that point. So basically, I could say, here's our dashboard. We're on target. Here's the schedule. Here's what I'm going to deliver. And here's what's in scope. Here's what's out of scope. So, I mean, I could run a project and I was doing fine, but it did take me longer than I expected. The crappy part, and this was, I think, independent of me working on it specifically, but as we know, SEO has a lot of churn and algorithm updates and competition. So he ranked well for a while, but I think maybe like 6 or 9 months later, his rankings went down, and he was like sending me messages occasionally. And he was like, hey man, like this is going on. And I'm like, you can hire me again to like work on stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, it looks like your competitors are coming up. There was an algorithm change, something, typical stuff. And he struggled a little bit with it over the next, I don't know, year, something like that. But you don't want to get in over your head where you're like inexperienced and you're like overselling and you're like, hey, I could do Reddit marketing, and you've never done it before and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. I do not recommend you do that. Have some understanding on like what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you potentially can take a course and get some skills under your belt. But I would be, if you're a professional and you're charging for your services, you want to make sure that you indeed are a professional and you can deliver whatever you're promising. That is one of the issues with, the traditional SEO marketing. Like a lot of SEOs would like overpromise in a very dramatic way, way overpromise, like not even close to what they could deliver. And that's why a lot of people had, mistrust of SEOs out there. The third and fourth one, I'll kind of put them together today. Just content creation. This could take on many different flavors. I like podcast and YouTube. Other people like short form video. And I can't comment specifically on like the viability of like long-term earnings on the short form content area. Obviously it can be done. I think you may have to have a very, very large number of followers to earn good money. And it is unclear to me like how consistent the revenue can be over a long period of time. If you're on a platform where you can grow really quickly, it probably means you could also decline really quickly, which is always scary if you're banking on, earning a certain amount of money consistently so you can pay your mortgage and your bills and other shit you have to pay for, obviously. So that makes it pretty tough when you're building on someone else's platform. When I was, just getting started, I mean, it was a roller coaster ride. I mean, it would be, $10,000 one month and then a few $100s the next month. And I'm like, oh man, this is not great. It feels so good when it works out, but when it's not, then you're really questioning whatever it is you're working on. And I mean, if it's consistently going up and down, then at least you could count on that. But it was inconsistent until I figured a few things out. That said, it changed a few years later, right? I mean, now these websites are a thing of the past overall. But content creation can work. Again, I have a preference for YouTube, and I feel like long form video is something that's pretty hard to do. I mean, I'm just publishing podcasts out here, so it's a little bit easier for me. But long form video, I mean, I'm a consumer myself, and if you can use long form video to support a business that you already have running, like if you have some product business, then that can work out great. For example, I am looking at a bunch of guitar pedals and stuff on the floor around me, and I watch a couple YouTubers that do live streams and other content, and they are pedal makers. And it's like totally entertaining and fun. And they talk about their products, their new products, and they're just running the business because people are interested in that. And they are able to sell their products. And it's a great way to just like build community with the content. And if you already have some products that you're selling, adding a, component of content creation can be extremely valuable. The connections that you build are much greater than in most other ways, especially if it's like no community around your product and you only meet people when you go to maybe like a conference and then it's just other industry people. So having some outlet is really good. And I mean, you guys see this out there on any platform, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, like people are sharing, businesses are sharing like the behind the scenes stuff. And it's interesting for a lot of people out there. Not easy, but the connection that you can create is invaluable. Related to the content creation area is a newsletter. And I think I probably skipped newsletters in the past few updates like this, but a newsletter would be a direct way to like connect to your audience. If you're more of the writing type and you don't want to do video, you don't want to do audio, the newsletter works if you are a writer. And of course, you see this in the form of Substack, where you can give away stuff for free. You could have a combo of free and paid. You could have it all paid or whatever. And that's a great way to connect directly with your audience. It's in the written form. Newsletters and email are still just as powerful and great as they ever have been. I am on a handful of newsletters. I unsubscribe to a lot of, I'll sign up for a little while and then I'm like, I'm getting too many emails. But basically with email, you have the ability to connect with your audience. You can send them to whatever other content you have. If you do have another business, like a guitar pedal business, you can have them on your email list and let them know when you launch. So I would say like an email newsletter goes hand in hand with the content creation, whatever platform you do. And having the ability to connect with your audience like that in the written word via email, where there's no algorithms like messing up what you're trying to do. I mean, I'm looking at some of my stats for this podcast on YouTube and it's buried. It is totally buried. Meanwhile, crazy thing, audio side is taken off. It's the weirdest thing. However, if you just, the thing is you can't see my analytics on the podcast side, but on YouTube, you can see like, oh, there's like under 100 views on some of these. So it's been an interesting little experiment recently. And luckily, talked about this, I've detached myself from the analytics, although it feels good when it goes up, but I kind of ignore it when it goes down because especially on YouTube, what a crapshoot. So crazy. So content creation, great route. I think even if you don't decide to stick with it, if you are creating content, again, any format, audio, video, written content, it will improve your communications, which is always a good thing. And you should be able to transfer those skills to anything else that you work on ever again in the future. Last one I'll mention, which I hesitate, but software is more accessible to everyone these days. And if you have a problem that you think you can solve with software, I think it's a time where you can give it a shot and get a prototype going in a fairly straightforward way using AI tools. I haven't played around myself. I don't have a specific problem that I'm trying to solve. I'm going to keep talking in the same voice. For the people that are listening, you can't see this, but Georgie's screaming. So she's kicking her legs and I had to whisper her name because I didn't want to wake her up. but she's kicking her legs, and sometimes she barks and stuff. So if we're very lucky, we'll hear some barks. But yeah, she was dreaming of chasing a squirrel, I think. That's my guess. Back to software, all right? Back to the software. If you have an idea that can be solved with software, it's worth it to give it a shot. I haven't done any of this myself. I always caution people. Actually, I think when I was talking about vibe coding with Jason back in September, I was like, man, people are putting together these tools, but they don't have the software background to actually manage bugs and have customers, basically. So there were a couple people that I know of, and they would create tools with no intention of like taking it over the finish line. They would just like get paying users, and they were trying to sell their software company, and they would sell these little pieces off. So they would start something up, get a few hundred customers, sell like lifetime subscriptions and or lifetime access, like one-time fee. So they would get a handful of users, and then they would sell it. And not always, but I have to tell you, I mean, a lot of times when people sell software companies, the next person that gets it, they don't do anything with it. They like let it die a slow death. And it doesn't always happen, but typically that is what's happening. I've seen it so many times in my very small, unofficial survey and observations. All right, Georgie woke up there, so she had a little dream. Now she's stretching. So anyway, thing is, it sounds like the AI coding tools are pretty good these days. So give it a shot. You obviously can learn all the things that I was talking about, maintaining software. The thing is, like, there's going to be bugs regardless. There's always going to be some bugs. But as interfaces change, as different software changes around whatever tool you're using, then other things break. So typically, if you are creating some piece of software, it's going to interface with other either data or other pieces of software, APIs, and generally things change over time, updates come out and other tools, and that breaks whatever it is you have going on. So it's kind of an ongoing thing, and it does make sense generally to pay for continued access for a specific tool, knowing that it costs money to keep the software running without bugs. So as much as I don't want to have subscriptions and stuff like that, if you want to have like good software, like it probably will cost money over time, and an annual subscription does kind of make sense. I sound like someone who has a software company that charges on an annual basis, but I don't. So those are a couple things I would look at if I was starting over in 2026 with generally no skills. And again, I mean, if I was starting something from scratch, I've used Canva before, but like, I mean, I'm not a graphic design expert or anything like that. But I think, the print on demand is a very low barrier to entry with a marketplace in place. And that is one of the big advantages with that. If you're creating content, then you are one of tens, hundreds of millions of people trying to put out content, trying to get attention. It's pretty tough. No one really cares about you at all. It's really hard to get attention out there. You don't need a huge audience to get started and to make it worthwhile, but it's hard to get noticed in such a sea of, content in general. And a lot of it is pretty good content out there. So many opportunities. And then if you're starting a software, product of some kind, some SaaS, again, it's very competitive out there. And that's one of the hard things with, starting something from scratch. Like the demand is probably not as high as you hope or think it will be compared to the supply of, products or whatever attention getting thing is over on the other side of the equation. It's pretty crowded in a lot of places. You start a podcast, There's a lot of podcasts out there. You can niche down and then expand over time, but you can overcome it. And if you, for example, if you do start a podcast or a YouTube channel and you have like a few dozen people that start watching you over the course of 6 months, I mean, that's a few dozen people. That's actually like a full room of people. That's a lot of folks listening to you. And you can improve, you can grow faster than you think. I watch a lot of YouTube channels and listen to podcasts, and new ones pop up. And if they have a compelling story, if they bring some skills from their previous life, they're able to grow faster and just kind of blow up. I mean, it happens all the time in super saturated areas. And I've seen, channels grow from whatever, few 10,000, like under 10,000 to like over 100,000 in a fairly short amount of time. And they're just like, yep, doing my thing. A lot of these, I gravitate towards long form video, talking, 20, 30, 40 minutes. I'll watch long videos like that. It's pretty fun. Okay, I think that's it for today. Please let me know if you have something on your radar that you're getting started where you're like, I'm actually getting some pretty good traction out there. Or even if you haven't started and you have no traction, but you're like, I have seen these people talking about X business model and I am curious about it, but I haven't dabbled yet. Leave a comment below or shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show.